Have you ever wondered why some people become fluent in English so much faster than others? Is it because they attend expensive courses? Do they have a special talent? Or are they simply smarter? The truth is much simpler than that. There is one habit that almost every fluent English speaker shares, and surprisingly, it doesn't require speaking for hours every day. It doesn't require memorizing hundreds of grammar rules or learning thousands of vocabulary words from boring lists. That powerful habit is reading. Today, I'm going to show you why reading is one of the greatest tools for learning English, and how it can completely change the way you improve your speaking, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and confidence. By the end of this video, you'll understand why reading isn't just another study technique. It's the shortcut that successful English learners have been using for years. So, let's begin. Imagine that you want to speak English naturally. You want to join conversations without feeling nervous. You want to watch movies without constantly looking at subtitles. You want to express your thoughts clearly, without stopping every few seconds to search for the right words. Now, imagine achieving all of that simply by spending a few minutes. Reading every day sounds unbelievable? Actually, that's exactly how your brain learns a language naturally. Reading is much more than looking at words on a page. Every sentence you read teaches your brain something new. Without even realizing it, you're collecting vocabulary, understanding sentence structures, improving grammar, and learning how native speakers express their ideas. Think of reading as having a private English teacher available 24 hours a day. Every time you open a book, read a short article, follow a blog, or even enjoy a comic, your brain is receiving another English lesson without feeling like you're studying. That's one of the biggest reasons reading works so well. Unlike traditional studying, reading feels enjoyable. You're focused on understanding the story instead of memorizing rules. While your attention is on the characters, the adventure, or the information, your brain quietly absorbs the language. And that's exactly how children learn their first language. They don't study grammar books before speaking. They listen, observe, repeat patterns, and gradually understand how the language works. Reading gives English learners that same natural learning experience. Let's imagine you're reading a story about a young traveler visiting London for the very first time. As the story continues, you naturally learn words related to transportation, restaurants, hotels, directions, weather, emotions, and daily conversations. You discover how people greet each other, ask for help, give directions, and solve problems. What's amazing is that you're not trying to memorize any of these words. You're simply enjoying the story. But your brain is learning anyway. This type of learning is far more effective than trying to remember random vocabulary lists because every word appears inside a meaningful situation. Instead of memorizing the word excited, you see a character who feels excited before starting a new adventure. Instead of learning the word confused from a dictionary, you experience the character's confusion while reading the story. Because emotions and situations make words meaningful, they're much easier to remember. That's why readers usually build vocabulary much faster than people who only study textbooks. Another incredible benefit of reading is that it teaches grammar naturally. Many English learners spend years worrying about grammar rules. Should I use the present perfect? When do I use the past continuous? Which preposition is correct? These questions can become frustrating, but reading changes everything. When you repeatedly see correct English sentences, your brain begins recognizing patterns automatically. For example, if you read sentences like, "He was walking through the park," "She has already finished her homework," "They've been waiting for almost an hour," you start understanding these grammar structures without forcing yourself to memorize complicated explanations. The more you read, the more familiar these patterns become. Eventually, using correct grammar starts feeling natural instead of difficult. This is exactly why many fluent English speakers can't always explain grammar rules, but they still use them correctly. Their brains recognize what sounds right because they've seen those patterns thousands of times. Reading trains your brain in exactly the same way. Here's another powerful secret. Reading doesn't only improve your vocabulary and grammar, it also teaches you how English really sounds. Every language has common phrases that native speakers use every single day. Instead of saying individual words one by one, they speak in complete expressions. For example, take your time. I can't believe it. That sounds great. It depends. No worries. When you read regularly, you meet these expressions again and again. Slowly, they become part of your own English. Then, when you're speaking, you don't have to translate from your native language. The expressions come naturally because your brain has already stored them. This is one of the biggest differences between intermediate learners and fluent speakers. Fluent speakers don't create every sentence from grammar rules. They simply remember language patterns they've seen and heard many times before. Reading helps you build those same patterns every single day. And that's exactly why it becomes easier to speak confidently. The more your brain recognizes English naturally, the less effort you need when it's finally time to speak. Now let's talk about one of the biggest challenges every English learner faces: thinking in your native language. Most learners hear something in English, translate it into their own language, prepare an answer, and then translate it back into English before speaking. By the time they're ready to respond, the conversation has already moved on. Does that sound familiar? If yes, don't worry. Almost every English learner experiences this at some point. But here's the exciting part. Reading helps break this habit. The more English you read, the more your brain starts processing English directly. Instead of translating every sentence, imagine reading a simple story about a teenager who dreams of becoming a professional football player. As you continue reading chapter after chapter, you're no longer translating every word. Instead, you're following the story, imagining the scenes, and understanding the emotions. Without even noticing it, your brain begins thinking in English. This small change creates a huge difference, because when you think in English, speaking becomes faster, smoother, and much more natural. That's exactly how fluency begins. Now let's talk about vocabulary. Many learners believe they need to memorize hundreds of words every week, but that's actually one of the slowest ways to build vocabulary. Think about it. If someone gives you 50 random words today, how many will you still remember next month? Probably only a few. Now compare that with reading. Every story introduces new words inside real situations. Instead of simply learning the word adventure, you follow exciting adventures with the characters. Instead of memorizing explore, you watch someone explore a mysterious forest. Instead of studying brave, you see a character making a brave decision during a difficult moment. Because every word has context, your brain remembers it much longer. And the best part, the same words appear again and again in different stories. Each time you see them, your understanding becomes stronger. Eventually, those words become part of your own vocabulary. Suddenly, your conversations become more interesting. Instead of saying, "It was good," you can say, "It was absolutely fascinating." Instead of saying, "It was fun," you can say, "It was an unforgettable adventure." Small vocabulary improvements make a huge difference in the way people understand your English. Another wonderful benefit of reading is that it improves your listening skills. You might be wondering, how can reading help me understand spoken English? The answer is surprisingly simple. When you read regularly, your brain becomes familiar with English sentence patterns. Later, when you hear someone speaking, your brain recognizes those patterns much faster. Imagine listening to your favorite song for the first time. Some words are difficult to understand, but after listening several times, suddenly every lyric becomes clear. Reading creates a similar effect. It gives your brain repeated exposure to English before you even hear it spoken. That's why people who read regularly usually understand podcasts, interviews, movies, and conversations much more easily. Your brain already knows many of the words and expressions. It simply recognizes them faster. Now think about confidence. Confidence doesn't appear overnight. It grows every time you understand something successfully. Every page you finish gives your Brain another reason to believe. I can understand English, and that feeling is incredibly powerful. Imagine reading an interesting article about a famous chef who created unique dishes from simple ingredients. Later, during a conversation about food, you naturally remember something from that article. Instead of struggling to find something to say, you confidently share an interesting fact. People listen. They respond. The conversation continues. Moments like these slowly build real confidence. You're no longer repeating memorized classroom sentences. You're sharing ideas you've learned through real English. That's exactly what fluent speakers do. Now, many learners ask an important question. How much should I read every day? The answer might surprise you. You don't need 3 or 4 hours. You don't even need 1 hour. Just 10 to 15 minutes every day can produce amazing results if you stay consistent. Consistency is always more important than intensity. Reading 15 minutes every day is much more effective than reading 3 hours only once a week. Your brain learns languages through repetition. Small daily practice creates long-term improvement. Choose a time that easily fits into your routine. Maybe while drinking your morning coffee, maybe during lunch, maybe before going to sleep. The exact time doesn't matter. The habit does. As days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months, you'll notice something amazing. Words become familiar. Sentences become easier. Speaking becomes smoother. Listening becomes clearer. And one day, you'll suddenly realize you're understanding English much more easily than before. That's the magic of consistent reading. Every page you read becomes another small step toward fluency. By itself, one page may not seem important, but hundreds of pages together completely transform your English. That's how progress really happens. Not through one big effort, but through many small efforts repeated every single day. Think about reading as a journey instead of a study session. Every book, article, or story becomes a new destination. You discover different cultures, meet unforgettable characters, explore exciting places, and experience ideas that you may never have imagined before. And while you're enjoying that journey, your English keeps improving without feeling like hard work. That's what makes reading so powerful. Now imagine you're cooking your favorite meal. Every ingredient you add improves the final taste. Reading works exactly the same way. Every new word you learn, every useful phrase you notice, every sentence structure you understand, becomes another ingredient that makes your English stronger, richer, and more natural. Over time, your vocabulary becomes more colorful. Instead of using simple words again and again, you begin expressing yourself with greater accuracy and confidence. That's when people start noticing the difference. One of the biggest advantages of reading stories is that they expose you to real English. Many textbooks teach formal expressions that are useful, but not always common in everyday conversations. Real stories are different. They show you how people actually speak, instead of only reading, "Hello, how are you today?" You might see conversations like, "Hey, what's going on? Long time no see. I'm just kidding. No problem at all. I'll catch you later." These are expressions native speakers use naturally every day. The more often you see them in books and stories, the easier they become to remember. Eventually, they start appearing in your own conversations without any effort. That's one of the reasons fluent speakers sound relaxed and natural. They've seen these expressions hundreds of times. Reading gives you exactly the same advantage. If you're just beginning your English journey, don't worry about reading difficult novels. Start with materials that match your current level. Choose simple stories, short articles, easy blogs, children's books, graded readers, or even comics. Simple English doesn't mean boring English. In fact, beginner-friendly books are often the fastest way to improve because you understand most of what you're reading. When you understand around 90% of a text, your brain can easily learn the remaining new words from context. That creates steady progress without frustration. Here's another strategy that many successful learners use. Whenever you discover a new word, Don't rush to memorize it immediately. Instead, pay attention to how it's used. Let's say you read the sentence, "The sky looked gloomy before the storm arrived." Even if you've never seen the word gloomy before, the sentence gives you several clues. You can probably guess that it describes dark, cloudy, or depressing weather. Then, if you meet the same word again in another story, and later in a movie, and perhaps again in an article, your brain naturally remembers it. That's much more effective than memorizing dictionary definitions. Language is learned through repeated exposure, not through pressure. Some learners like keeping a vocabulary notebook. That's a wonderful habit. Whenever you find an interesting word or phrase, write it down together with the sentence where you found it. Don't only write the meaning, write the entire sentence. Later, when you review your notebook, you'll remember not only the word but also how native speakers actually use it. That makes your English much more natural. Here's another simple exercise that works incredibly well. Choose one sentence from your reading, then create your own sentence using the same pattern. For example, suppose you read, "She stayed home because she wasn't feeling well." Now create your own version. "He stayed late because he had important work." Or, "They left early because it started raining." This exercise trains your brain to use English structures naturally instead of translating from your first language. The more patterns you practice, the easier speaking becomes. Now let's talk about variety. Reading doesn't always have to mean novels. Mix different types of content to keep learning exciting. Read travel articles if you enjoy exploring new places. Read sports news if you're a football fan. Read technology blogs if you love gadgets. Read health magazines if fitness interests you. Read biographies if you enjoy inspiring success stories. When you're reading topics you genuinely enjoy, learning never feels like a chore. Your curiosity keeps you motivated, and motivation creates consistency. Another hidden benefit of reading is confidence. Many learners stay silent because they're afraid of making mistakes. They wonder, what if my grammar is wrong? What if I pronounce something incorrectly? What if people laugh at me? But something interesting happens when you read regularly. You become familiar with correct English again and again. Your brain starts recognizing what sounds natural. Without realizing it, you begin trusting yourself more. Instead of doubting every sentence, you simply speak. You may still make mistakes, and that's completely normal, but you no longer let fear control you. That's real confidence. Confidence isn't about speaking perfectly. It's about speaking despite imperfections. And reading helps build exactly that mindset. There's another simple habit that can make your reading practice even more powerful. Read out loud. It may feel a little unusual at first, but it's one of the fastest ways to improve your pronunciation, fluency, and speaking confidence. When you read silently, only your brain is working. But when you read aloud, your brain, eyes, ears, and mouth work together. This creates stronger connections inside your mind and helps you remember words and sentence patterns much faster. You also become more comfortable producing English sounds. At first, you may read slowly. You may mispronounce a few words. That's completely normal. Remember, every fluent speaker was once a beginner. The goal isn't to sound perfect. The goal is to improve a little every single day. Here's a challenge for you. Choose a short paragraph from anything you're reading. Read it aloud 2 or 3 times. Then try reading it again with better pronunciation and smoother rhythm. Finally, close the book and try explaining the same idea in your own words. This simple exercise improves reading, speaking, pronunciation, and confidence, all at the same time. Another great idea is to bring English into your everyday life. Reading doesn't have to stop when you close a book. Look around you. Read product labels while shopping. Read restaurant menus. Read signs on the street. Read instructions on your phone. Read recipes while cooking. Read captions on social media. Read news headlines. Even these small moments give your brain more exposure to English. And remember, every little bit counts. Language learning isn't about one huge breakthrough. It's about Thousands of small moments that slowly build real fluency. The more English becomes part of your daily routine, the more natural it begins to feel. Another amazing benefit of reading is that it helps you develop your own communication style. Every author has a unique way of telling stories and expressing ideas. Some write with humor, some write with emotion, others explain things in a simple and inspiring way. As you read different writers, you naturally begin discovering your own voice. You borrow useful expressions. You notice interesting sentence patterns. You learn new ways to explain ideas. Little by little, your English starts reflecting your own personality. That's when speaking becomes truly enjoyable. You're no longer copying someone else. You're expressing yourself. Reading also makes you a more interesting person. Every article teaches you something new. Every story introduces a different perspective. Every biography shares valuable life lessons. Every science article explains fascinating discoveries. Every travel blog takes you somewhere new. Every history book connects you with the past. Not only does your English improve, your knowledge of the world grows as well, and that gives you endless conversation topics. Imagine meeting someone from another country. Instead of struggling to keep the conversation alive, you confidently talk about an interesting book you recently read, a fascinating place you learned about, or an inspiring person whose story motivated you. Reading doesn't just improve your English, it improves your ability to connect with people, and that's one of the greatest benefits of learning any language. So here's the most important message I want you to remember. Reading isn't homework. Reading isn't punishment. Reading isn't something only students should do. Reading is one of the most enjoyable and effective ways to become fluent in English. Every page you finish adds new vocabulary. Every chapter strengthens your grammar. Every story improves your imagination. Every article increases your confidence. Every sentence brings you one step closer to speaking English naturally. You don't need expensive courses. You don't need complicated grammar, books. You don't need to study for endless hours every day. You simply need consistency. Reading a little today, read a little tomorrow. Keep going next week, keep going next month, and one day, you'll look back and realize something incredible. The English that once felt difficult now feels comfortable. The words that once seemed impossible now come naturally. The conversations that once made you nervous now become exciting. That's the power of reading. It quietly transforms your English one page at a time. So starting today, make reading a part of your daily life. Pick a book that interests you. Find an article about your favorite hobby. Read a short story before going to bed, or spend just 15 minutes exploring something new in English. Your future self will thank you for it, because every page you read is another investment in your confidence, another step toward fluency, and another reason to believe that you really can become the English speaker you've always wanted to be. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming English lessons. Thank you so much for watching. Keep reading, keep learning, keep believing in yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.